Okay, welcome everybody. This is the Everything Real Estate Podcast. I am your host, John Baranowski with the North Group Mortgage Team. And today I am very excited to be welcoming from Raleigh, North Carolina, Brette Davis. Brette has been in the real estate industry for just about 10 years now. And in the last 12 months, her and her team have closed just over $31 million in real estate. So that's some really tremendous numbers. And I want to welcome you, Brette. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. So Brette, I'd love if you could just tell us a little bit about your background, your history with real estate and how you got into real estate just to get started. How's that?
Yeah. So back in the day, I was working a full-time corporate job. And at the time, I really wanted to jump into getting into real estate investments. And I learned very quickly after getting my license that you have to have some money for real estate investments. And at the time, I was really just getting my feet wet. So I decided to go into full-time general brokerage, which is working with buyers and sellers both. And I started on a team, learned a ton about real estate, really enjoyed it. I just feel like my mentors at the time were perfect for teaching everything that I needed to know. And of course, failing and learning along the way. Right. And then at the beginning of 2020, I thought it was a good idea to start a team amidst all of the craziness that was going on. But honestly, at the time, I feel like it was just ignorance on fire. And I'm really glad that it lined up that way because I learned so much about resilience and pivoting and how to be there and be valuable for our clients through probably one of the toughest things that we'll experience in our lifetime. So I just, building a team and learning a lot about the personalities of not only, the buyers and sellers I'm working with, but also the team members that I'm managing was a really big shift. And so I'm excited to kind of talk about today, like how that pivoted, our business and what our business looks like now as a result of all that.
Sure. Well, listen, like I said, from what I can see on paper, you guys are doing a tremendous bang up job, and it's great to see. And I love to have people on the podcast that are doing really great things. And ultimately, what is it all about? It's about helping more and more people, right? And that's what we love to do. So awesome. Before we jump in to my subscribers out there, please like and subscribe to the podcast. It helps us to get the information out to more people. We really love to get this following going here. So. We'll jump in, and I want to really understand the Raleigh market. Okay, I want to know if you can provide me with like a snapshot of the current market, and what are some of the things that your buyers and sellers are seeing and saying. So let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So if you're unfamiliar with the Raleigh-Durham market in North Carolina, we are, I guess, considered kind of like a Silicon Valley 2.0. So we are very well known here for Research Triangle Park, which is a lot of tech companies. We also have a ton of medical, a ton of business, and we also have 3 major universities. So NC State, Duke, and UNC. And so there's a lot of drawing factors to this area, just business-wise, but also weather-wise. Right. So we still get 4 seasons here, but everything is super mild and beautiful. And of course, if you've ever visited North Carolina, it's just gorgeous. You have the mountains and the beach and just so many amazing things. So with Research Triangle kind of being the hub and like the thing that everybody revolves around here for jobs and work and everything like that, the last time I checked, we have about 78 new people a day moving to the Triangle. And so that also proves as a really great investment opportunity as well. So not only people that are looking to, invest in themselves and start building equity in the home that they're living in, but also investors who come in and they buy it or they, and they flip it and resell it, or they keep it as a long-term rental or an Airbnb opportunity. There's just so many things going on here. And like my husband always tells me, he says, everything happens in Raleigh. Like everything seems to happen here. And so it's really exciting, especially if you're a business owner or you enjoy investing in real estate. So the market here has remained fairly stable for the entire duration that I've been in real estate. It was a really interesting shift in COVID. There was a short blip there where everything just kind of halted, but it didn't take too long for that to catch right back up to where it was. And in fact, later in 2020 and early 2021, things skyrocketed. And in some places, we had about 41% appreciation.
Wow.
So that was
That's amazing.
unheard of, because
Right.
at the time we had 2 and 3% interest rates. So currently in the market, of course, we've had a little bit of a slowdown because interest rates have increased. They are, the last I saw was about 6.6%, I think I saw yesterday. So almost 7%, depending on, how long the loan is for, what your credit score is, all those variables that the lenders talk to their clients about.
Right.
So we've seen a slowdown, not only because of that, but I think people are holding out thinking that that is going to result in the prices of the homes dropping, which we have not seen here. They've corrected slightly and they've kind of made sellers become more realistic about what their home is worth,
Right.
but they have not dropped. And in fact, they continue to rise. And so now what we're seeing is people that are getting sick of waiting around because it's not happening.
Right.
And now they're getting sick of the house they're in. They want to level up, or, whatever their plan comes next, they're getting ready. And so the spring market in this area is alive and well as of the last couple of weeks. And now we are back to seeing multiple offers again.
Okay.
So that's exciting for us.
Yeah.
And having the right professional navigating you through that is significant. So yeah.
All right, awesome. So that being said, you touched on interest rates, right? Obviously, from a lending perspective, from my perspective, we've seen that, right? So I want to ask your opinion on the cost of waiting. Okay, what I mean by that is, you hear, like you said, you have these people that are sitting on the sidelines waiting for interest rates to drop or values to drop, right? Historically, we don't see both happening at the same time. We had, I think, in the last 40 years, I think we've had one time that happened, right? And that was right after the crash of '08. But that was an anomaly. We were giving loans to people who didn't really qualify for the loans, and that is what it is, right? That's in the past. That's where we are. But statistics show me that in the last 42 years, or I'm sorry, since 1942, that home prices have appreciated year over year over year. I think it's something like 37 times, and they've only gone down like 6 times. And one time in 1990, they stayed the same. So because of interest rates, yes, in the beginning of 2021, they went up drastically, like it was 3% in 6 months. So we saw a lot of people like back off, right? But I think that what I'm seeing, and I'd love to get your opinion on this, is that the sting of the higher interest rates is kind of worn off. Because the other thing to consider is that since 1971, the average interest rate across the board has been 7.74. So if that's the case, we're right where we're supposed to be right now, or actually a little less. So I'm just curious your take on that, and what has that done for the market?
Yeah, so I think it's really important to point out from the get-go that this is a very different experience from the 2008 crash. So comparing that market with this market, like most people have been, according to news headlines and whatever, it's just very different. It's not the same. So I think that the cost of waiting, especially when I think back to 2017, when I bought my own home, right? And thinking forward a couple of years and realizing if I had not purchased at that moment, I would have essentially created double the mortgage than when I purchased in 2017. So I think that, like you said, interest rates are still historically low. I don't think that we'll ever see interest rates back at 2 or 3%. And you can kind of talk to that as well. Sure. I think that the Fed is still, trying to figure out what's going to get that inflation under control. I mean, think about it. You go to the shopping mall and it's packed. Like people are spending money. It is a strong economy right now. And I think that, those 2 and 3% are just, in the past.
Right.
And so when you guys think about, investing in something like, especially if you need a place to live, now is not the time to sit on it, especially since, there are tons of jobs out there currently. There are lots of people that are moving in and creating new businesses. There are a lot of, tech companies moving in and creating those jobs. And that's only going to increase the price year over year. So the cost of waiting is humongous. Because here's the reality, and I kind of want to play this out in a real life situation. Like, okay, so we bought our house in 2017, and I always tell my clients this. And then we sold our house a couple of years later, right? We bought at that lower price, and then a couple of years later, we bought at the higher price.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we won't see the 41% appreciation again. I mean, that was pretty historic as well. But still, during that time, instead of renting or, not jumping on it, we were not putting money in our own pocket. When we went to go sell, we had such more buying power coming out of that sale to be able to invest in our next purchase that we wouldn't have had if we would have just sat on the sidelines and hoped that the prices were going to come down. I think that people are really shooting themselves in the foot right now, thinking like, oh my gosh, I shouldn't have waited during that time, thinking something was going to happen. And, just listening to the gurus, the Dave Ramsey's, the Kiyosaki's, the big economists that are speaking on this, they are not seeing prices come down either. So the cost of waiting, I think, is significant.
Right. Yeah. Well, one of the things that I talk to the clients when I have interviews with them and they're like, oh, well, should I wait until interest rates drop? I give them a scenario, right? I say, listen, if you're looking at a purchase price of $425, you're going to take a $400,000 mortgage today at say 7%, right? Just using round numbers. But then instead you want to wait a year until it goes to 6%. What's going to happen? People are going to be coming out of the woodwork because they hear interest rates drop, right? If interest rates drop a quarter or a half, people are flocking to get into the market now because they don't understand interest rate as much as you would think. Not that people don't understand, but they ask about interest rate because that's the one question they know to ask about, right? So if you have a property today and the mortgage is $400,000 at 7%, but then you wait a year till it goes to 6%, that value is going to go up to 440 and the monthly payment's going to be the same. So what did you lose? You lost $40,000 in equity in that time frame when you could have bought it and you had the same monthly payment anyway. So the advice I would ask from you, like you give to buyers and sellers for that matter, right? What is the advice that you give to them in that situation? Is it time to buy a house? When is the time to buy a house?
Yeah. So you and I both, I mean, it's a constant educating process, right? Working with our clients and giving them the proper education as to where we would advise and what we would advise them to do during this time. I think that really, as an agent, it is my job to help advise them on how they can have a competitive advantage, right? I personally think, just knowing what I know over the last couple of years and working in the industry and working alongside buyers and sellers and just paying attention to what's going on, that the best competitive advantage is to purchase when there is not a frenzy of buyers in the market, where essentially if the interest rate were to drop, for example, to let's say even 4.5% or 5% still, you're going to have, like you said, people coming out of the woodwork, and now we're going to have those bidding wars again. And I don't know if you experienced this, but in our market, we were experiencing 50 to 100,000, if not more, over asking price.
Absolutely.
And sometimes people don't really understand or grasp what that actually means. So it doesn't mean appraisers are going to come in and they're going to appraise that property and you're going to just wrap that into a loan. No, that was a lot of the time buyers bringing cash to the closing table to make up an appraisal gap. And that's a very scary thing, especially for, first-time home buyers or people who don't have that liquid cash. It creates an affordability thing, right? And so talking about proper education with the current clients that we have, if they're sitting on the sidelines, I'm saying, hey, look, play this out in your head, right? You can purchase something that's still at an affordable price right now that will appraise. Let's say you could offer asking price and we think it will appraise with no other competition.
Right.
And yes, you might have a higher interest rate, but we have been told that in the future, they will be leveling out that interest rate and potentially even dropping that. So what does that look like for a buyer who has a 7% interest rate? You got in at the price you wanted to get in with not a ton of extra capital overbidding and not a ton of competition, getting exactly what you want, getting the repair request that you want completed, getting closing costs from the seller in some cases. And then later on, when that price, even percentage drops 1%, I mean, that would be huge. And people would jump back into the market like crazy, but refinancing and you're in the home already. And now you just need to go refinance and improve your monthly payment and bring that back down to, leveling out where it should be. I think that is such a better scenario than if you are, let's say, at a 4.5%, 5% interest rate. Even 5.5% will make people go nuts. And now you're having to try to figure out where you're going to get the money to get into this market and compete with cash buyers and people that have the capital to overbid that. So I think being proactive and utilizing, certain strategies and competitive advantages now when it's not crazy is in a buyer's best interest. And we've seen that historically over the years and trends and everything. So
sure. No, listen, I'm right there with you. And these are we have a much more savvy buyer than we did, say, 10 years ago or 15 years ago or anything like that. But at the same time, we are also in a market where sitting on the sideline is just only going to cost you money in the future is what's going to happen. So what I advise when I speak to the clients is I say, listen, if you can afford the payment today, let's get you a pre-approval. Let's find the house that works for you today. It doesn't have to be the forever home, especially these first-time home buyers, right? It doesn't have to be the forever home, but it gets you into the market. And then if rates do drop, then we can always do a no-cost lender or no lender cost refinance. And at the same time, if it's not the forever home, then it's a step in the right direction to get you to where you want to go, because the fact is that appreciation is happening. Even if natural appreciation is at 5%, in a couple of years, you upgrade, if you're a first-time home buyer and it's just a husband and wife, newly married, you have some kids, that's what you do. You move up. You do the move up buy. Now, I guess on the other side, for the sellers, one of the statistics that really struck me pretty hard the other day was that the average home in America has $270,000 in equity. At the same time, the average household has $97,000 in consumer debt. So what are you telling sellers to get them off the fence, to move this logjam along? Because they, a lot of them, like you said, have 2% and 3% interest rates, and they seem to be stuck on like the idea of going to a 5 or 6 or 7% interest rate. So what are you saying to the sellers?
Well, so on the sell side, obviously the people that have owned their home through the greatest appreciation that I've experienced, like you said, they have a lot of equity, and the sellers that are selling right now are taking a lot of that equity and they're paying down their consumer debt. So they have enough for their down payment for their next home. And they're also paying down, car loans, medical debt, whatever. And it's putting them ultimately into a better situation. It allows them to breathe again. But, on the other side of things, those are also buyers, right? So you have all of this equity, but they are also buyers, and they can take that to the new home, and it gives them that buying power.
Right.
So right now, interestingly enough, like sellers, if you position your home strategically, you price it well, the condition of your property is good, the marketing is there, you can put yourself into that multiple offer situation and get you even more. It just, it all depends, like I said, on who you hire with that. But what they're doing is when they sell that, they're using that to their advantage. It just puts them in such a better position moving forward. And I think that's really great. I'm a huge advocate of getting rid of debt. And so that's really exciting for me that people are able to get them out of those icky situations by using the equity based on a choice that they made years ago not to wait, right? So why not put yourself in that position even moving forward to put yourself in an even higher, level of equity. So
absolutely. And like I said, the biggest thing is that, interest rates is one thing, right? But that's just one piece of the big picture. So we have to educate them on the fact of, hey, great. You have a 2 or 3% interest rate, but what is that doing to you with $100,000 at 17 to 27% interest rate on your credit cards? If you look at the monthly payments and you sell this house, you can pay that $100,000 off, get into a house, putting another $200,000 down, move up, and overall, you're still going to be saving a tremendous amount monthly, because let's be honest, at minimum payments, it's going to take you 18 years to pay off those credit cards anyway. So we're going to put you in a better position. And that's what I love working with realtor partners, someone like yourself to be able to have it on both sides, that they're not just hearing it from the mortgage guy that's just trying to get them into the loan, or just the real estate agent that's just trying to get them to sell their house. But if they're hearing it from all over, then hey, maybe there's something to this, So the other question I have for you, Brett, is everything seems to be going smooth. You talked about a stable market for your area right now. Just a short question. What type of inventory are you looking at right now? How many months of inventory do you see that you have right now?
Depending on the city in our suburbs, you are looking anywhere between 3 to 6 months of inventory, which still makes it a seller's market.
Yeah,
I would say more times than not, it's around 3.5% month, or 3.5 months. Sorry.
Okay. But at the same time, are you finding that the sellers are a little bit open to negotiation, like for sellers' closing costs and things like that?
Yep, they are. I think that, like I said, I think that it created a market where sellers are becoming more realistic again. I think during 2020, it was really difficult because you had sellers that, inflated their prices. They weren't doing inspection, or they weren't, doing inspection repairs at all. Right. And it put buyers in a really icky situation, especially in our state. If you're familiar with North Carolina at all, we have a non-refundable deposit once you go into contract.
Right. That due diligence is a killer.
Yeah. And so, especially for first-time home buyers that were having to overbid,
yeah,
not only were they paying more for the house, but they were going in and finding things on the inspection that sellers were just saying, sorry, I'm not going to fix it for you.
Right. Because somebody's going to buy it, right?
That was not fun. And I can tell you that was as a result of lower interest rates.
Right.
So it's one of those things where, like, I push so hard on this, especially for first-time homebuyers, because I was a first-time home buyer.
Right.
And for me to have a seller that's, willing to do some of that stuff for me made more sense for me, because I had never owned a home before.
Sure.
And I was coming in and I was feeling comfortable with my payment because I didn't have to make a decision in 5 hours. So
Right.
Yeah, I think overall it is such a perfect time for buyers. And even though, just let's point this out too, the news is very scary, but keep in mind, their headlines are to make money.
Their
headlines are to get views.
You want to buy a house, turn off the news.
Exactly. Please shut it off, because
the majority
of the information you're receiving on there is not the whole picture.
Right.
So, if it's something where you're nervous and it's a fear factor of something that you've heard from somebody you spoke to or something you saw on TV, I would encourage everybody to have a conversation with a professional that's doing this every single day. Yes. And just really get the true picture of what's actually going on and put a plan together, even if it's something where you're not ready for a year from now, because financially you want to save or whatever. I think now is the perfect time to start planning for that, so you can start budgeting and understand what you're getting yourself into ahead of time and putting that strategy together. For sure.
And to my audience, please take a look at Brette. If you're looking in the Raleigh area, she has hundreds and hundreds of reviews for her and her team. You don't get all those reviews when you don't do a good job and advise people the right way. And that's tremendous. And that's one of the main reasons why I love having folks like you on to the interviews, is because I don't just look at your sales numbers, right? It's about what you're doing for the people that you're working with, because ultimately I get the impression right away in just having our conversations that you're not the type of person that's there for the commission. You're there to take care of people. The commission comes because you take care of people, right? It's a result of what you do. The more you help people, the better off you are. And I love working with people like that. So just to wrap things up, from a global perspective of the future, right? I know you don't have a crystal ball. I know, unless something I don't know that you can predict the future, but what do you see happening in the next 6 to 12 months with the marketplace?
Yep. I think that it is going to get crazy. I did hear, and I know they keep changing their time frame for this, but I did hear that they were going to be decreasing the interest rate once they got inflation under control. In the meantime, the prices still do continue to increase, even with that 7%. But as soon as those interest rates dropped, I think it's going to go nuts again, especially for the areas where there's a lot of job opportunities. Some of the southern states that have better weather, because you're seeing the great migration from the north
Sure.
and from other areas over the country.
Sure.
But if you are even considering selling or buying, right now is going to be the best time, especially entering into the spring market. Unless you like a challenge, then
Hey,
that,
go run a marathon. Don't take a challenge with buying a house. How's that?
yeah, I'll even tell you, even as a real estate agent, I wasn't a huge fan of the crazy market. Yeah, we could sell a house in 5 seconds, but it was stressful because when you care about your clients, you don't like that they're having to be in some of these situations. Because if you put yourself in that situation, like I would never want that as a buyer or a
Right.
seller.
Who wants that kind of pressure, Who wants to have to make a decision, like you said, in 5 hours, or like I'm gonna, put 10,000 down, or I'm gonna put $30,000 down, and it really is a gamble. Like if anything's wrong with the house, I don't get that money back. It's craziness. And talking about that just real quick, when we talk about interest rates versus the inflated prices, what at that time, 2020 to 2021, or, all that through COVID, the cost of entry into a house was, yes, you were getting a great interest rate, but like you said, you were paying sometimes between $50,000 and $100,000 over ask, bidding against 17 people at the same time, and crossing your fingers and hoping. Now, the cost of entry is a higher interest rate, but less competition. So there's never going to be a perfect scenario, but we navigate through it. We advise the clients on what the best situation is for them, based on their financial picture and their goals and dreams. And we do the best we can. So, but I think that, from what I can see, Brett, you and your team are doing a really tremendous job. And I love to see that. And I love to see what the future holds for you guys in the next 6 to 12 months and beyond. And I'd love to get you back on to have an interview in 6 months and see where the market is again.
I love it. Right back at you.
All right. And I hope that you found everything valuable here today. To our subscribers, please, again, subscribe, like this video so that more potential homeowners can take a look and see what we have to offer and what the market looks like in Raleigh, North Carolina. All right, guys, we'll see you soon.
That was great.